Hi, my name is Lane from Classic Accessories. I'm going to talk to you today about some tips for assembling our pontoon boats. One of the first things we're going to cover is actually getting air into the pontoon boats. And the first thing we want to talk about is the valve itself. The valves are on each pontoon, just at about seat point midway on the pontoons. And I've got a valve here that's been removed from the pontoon to show you how it works. One of the first things you see is a cap here. All that does is just keep the valve assembly clean. It doesn't let air out when you open this valve. And the valve is right here. By pressing on the black center plunger here, you actually open a piston, and that opens and lets air in and out of the pontoons. By pressing down and turning a quarter of a turn, it locks the valve open, and this is how you'll get air out. However, when you're inflating, the valve needs to be closed, and the air pressure will actually open the valve as you're pumping and then seal it, so you won't have air escaping in between your pump strokes. One of the critical tools for using this is the valve adapter, which is included in your parts kit. This simply turns in. Most pumps will need to use this valve adapter. This simply turns in or inserts, and a quarter of a turn locks into place. And then using various tip combinations, you can inflate your pontoons. And one of the questions we get a lot is what type of pump works with these boats? And really almost any pump can be made to work with these. It all depends on the use of the supplied adapter and the adapter tips that come with most pumps. Some pumps don't need to use an adapter at all. An example of this is the K pump. So here's the valve on your boat. Open the valve cover, and again the valve is now in the closed position, and the K pump simply inserts in here and blows air directly in. And again, as you're pumping, it opens that valve and blows air in, and then when I take the pump away, I'm not losing air. Most other pump types, you're going to need to use your adapter. So that works by going in and pushing down and turning a quarter of a turn, locked into place. And now you can use a variety of pumps. I have here a large two-way foot pump, and you just need to make sure you've got the right adapter tip on here. In this case, it's kind of a cone-shaped adapter, and that just goes right in here, and you operate the pump. Same thing with this simple bellows foot pump. You would insert the adapter in there, put it into your adapter hose, and pump away. The final type is using a compressor. If you've got a compressor tip with a rubber cone nozzle on it, you can put that right in there and use that to inflate your hulls. One thing when you're using the compressor, set the compressor pressure at as low as it'll go. You're only putting 2.5 pounds into your boat, so you don't want to blow a lot of air in there really fast at high pressure. And then monitor the pressure in your hulls as you're inflating. Okay, once you've got the hulls inflated to the proper pressure, the final step is to snug the valves closed in the pontoons. Using the supplied valve wrench, insert the wrench into the valve and just snug it up. Turn it clockwise, just so there's a little bit of pressure. You don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to rip the valve in the bladders. You don't want to torque these out. Just get it snug. Once you're done with that, you can simply close the valve. And you're ready to hit the water. Okay, now we're going to talk about reinstalling the bladder back into the skin. Now, when you buy your boat initially, the bladders will be already installed into the skin, so the only time you'd have to take it out is if you had a puncture that you needed to repair, or the very first time you inflate your boat, you may need to help position the bladders in the skin so they're not twisted. So we'll go over that. The bladders are the same left and right. There's different skins left and right, so the same bladder will work in either pontoon, so that's not a concern. You also see that the bladder has a hook and loop patch here and here, and that corresponds to the mating surface inside the skin here and here. So what we're going to do is install the bladder so that those meet up. So grab the tip and work it up into the hull or into the skin. Same thing with the bow end. And try to work this in so it lays flat inside the skin. And then go ahead and make up your hook and loop surfaces so that those line up. Now, when you get those lined up, you see that your valve is right here. Go ahead and unscrew the valve. And reinstall it through the skin. And then you want to further work the ends up into the ends of the skin. What we like to do is grab the very tip of the bladder, now pull the skin down around your hand, and grab both the skin and the bladder, and then pull it all taut. Do the same thing for the bow end. And then just go try to get the bladder so it's laying flat inside this skin. Work it out. Okay, at this point you're ready to start putting a little air into it. Okay, I've got the skin inflated about a quarter of the way now, and what I want to do is start checking to see if the bladder and the skin are kind of lined up. So one thing you can kind of do is to squeeze some air up into the tips, make sure it looks good. Try to grab the skin and the bladder, shake it out, and try to get everything to lay flat. If you need to, you can reach in there and smooth things around. Right now, this one's looking pretty good. You can see when I put a little air in there, it's not trying to twist over or wrinkle. So I feel pretty good about how these are all aligned. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding some more air. All right, I've got the pontoon about half inflated now, and it's looking pretty good. I can put some pressure on here. I don't see any drag lines where it looks like the bladder might be twisted inside the skin. Both front and back are looking pretty good. So I'm going to start adding some more pressure. At this point, I want to zip up the pontoon, or zip up the skin. And I'll continue bringing it up to full pressure. As you're doing that, periodically check, watch what's going on with the bladder and the skin to make sure that they're inflating without twisting, because this is when you're going to really start to see if the skin is twisted inside there. Okay, I've got it pretty much fully inflated now and up to pressure, and it looks really good. I don't see any twisting or drag lines or seams where it looked like the bladder might be twisted inside the skin here. And one of the reasons that it inflated so nicely is that we took our time as we were inflating it to work that bladder into position. We stopped a couple of times and checked it and made sure everything all lined up, and gradually brought it up to pressure. If you get to this point and you see that the ends are twisted, or you have a big wrinkle in here, what you need to do is let some air out so you can get your hands in there, rework that bladder, and then bring it back up again. You might need to do this a couple of times, but if you take your time and work through the process, it'll all go together well. Full pressure is just firm. It doesn't need to be rock hard. So at this point, you're ready to reinstall your skin and bladder into the frame and hit the water. Okay, one final thing after you've got your bladder installed into the skin, you need to tighten up the valve. So take your valve wrench, which is included in your kit, and just snug this up. It doesn't need to be really tight. Just about like that. Okay, some of our boats come with the option of adding a transportation wheel. Our Colorado series boats and our Oswego boats all have this feature. The Colorado XT and the Colorado XTS come with the wheel included, and the other boats have the frame accessory to add this, but the wheel is available as an option, and that can be obtained directly through Classic Accessories. The boats are not that heavy, but they're pretty awkward to carry, especially if you're going a long distance. So the wheel really makes it easy, especially if you're by yourself, to get the boat from your vehicle to the waterfront. The wheel, when it's not in use, is stored up against the basket in this horizontal position. To put it into the trail, the wheel use, simply pull the pin out, this clevis pin out, slide the wheel frame back, slide it into the fore and aft slot here, and put the pin back in, and then tighten up this knob. Now you're ready to throw the boat on the ground and wheel away. Disassembly is pretty much just the reverse of assembly. One thing we recommend is that when you're done using the wheel, you might want to take this knob out and store it in one of the side pockets just so you don't lose it. Okay, we get a lot of questions about adding a trolling motor to our pontoon boats. Obviously they come with the oars and you can row it, but a lot of people like to add the trolling motors as well. Most of our boats come with the option to mount the motor either on the left side or the right side. To make that change, you simply move these bolts and put the motor mount on the other side. We recommend using a 30-pound electric trolling motor. No diesel or gasoline motors on these, just don't even do it. Use the electric trolling motor and a 30-pound thrust. This is a 30-pound thrust motor. Sometimes these are hard to find. There's a lot of 40-pound thrusts out there. The thrust recommendation for a boat is based on the hull length and the hull shape. So adding a more powerful motor isn't really going to make the boat go any faster. So if you do have a 40-pound or a higher thrust motor, just operate it at half speed. What will happen is if you try to roll it faster, the boat's just going to bog down in the water. It can create an unsafe situation or potentially damage the boat. So keep it slow and just operate it at half throttle. When you do add the motor and the battery to the back end, you're putting a lot of weight in the back of the boat, and that can shift the way that the boat's riding in the water. One way to compensate for that is to adjust the seat forward a little bit. So get your boat set up, move the seat forward a little bit, and then test it on the water and just see if it's floating level and true. That's also true if you add a lot of fishing gear or if you're doing a camping trip and you have a lot of gear in the back. You might need to adjust the seat to trim the boat. There's wing nuts on the bottom of the seat, so you don't need any tools to do that. It's pretty easy to do on the fly.